welcome to another episode of the Greater Meaning Podcast. As always, I am your host, Andrew, alongside with my two hosts, Nathan.
And also with Josh.
I know. I'm your favorite. You guys don't have to be shy about it.
You're my favorite, Josh.
I thought I was Nathan's favorite.
I think you're everybody's favorite.
Today we're going to be talking about Abram.
We're going to be continuing the story of Abram, better known as Abraham. We're going to continue where we picked up with the Hebrew who resides next to terebinth trees of Mamre. We're going to cover
finding the ring of power. Imagine Abram with the ring of power and the staff of Moses, walking around, hiding. Not even hiding, just creating a tent under the terebinth tree of Moreh.
What Josh needs to say is it sounds very fanciful when you describe that way, but that's what, as we remember in the last episode, that's what he was referred to by other people that weren't part of his tribe. They just knew there was the Hebrew who stayed by the terebinth trees of Mamre. But we find our character Abram in the aftermath of the war against the four kings. Some time has passed since he's left his father's land, and now he is still chilling by them trees, and we see that the Lord visits him once more after he's called him out of his father's land. Nathan, if you could pick up and read in chapter 15, verses 1 through 6.
Genesis chapter 15, verses 1 through 6.
Thanks.
After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding reward. And Abram said, Lord God, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless, and the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus? And Abram said, Behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, no one born in my house is mine heir. I think that I'm reading the King James version as I'm reading this.
He's reading old King James.
Like old King James.
Thou art.
Always.
Is that sword?
What version do you want me to read? The New King James version?
I think that would be for the best. Good Lord. You were having a stroke through this, bro.
that was pretty hard. So
let's pick up from verse 3.
All right, let's pick up from verse 3 in normal English. Then Abram said, Look, you have given me no offspring. Indeed, one born in my house is my heir.
It's so much easier.
And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, saying, This one shall not be your heir, but one who will come from your own body shall be your heir. I don't like how to say heir. Hair?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Then he brought him outside and said, Look now toward heaven and count the stars if you are able to number them. And he said to him, So shall your descendants be. And he believed in the Lord, and he accounted it to him for righteousness.
That's right. We made it through.
Hey, he believed. He believed in the Lord.
Still, after all these years, Abram is found visited by the word of the Lord. And we see that God is giving him this beautiful promise, and he's confirming it. He's promising him that his descendants will be as the stars of the sky, and that his heir will come from his own body. I love how God continually clarifies this because it's super important for what's going to be coming up next. But we see Abram in a state where he has absolutely everything. I mean, he's attained wealth and money and servants from his escapades in Egypt and through the wars. He has a beautiful wife who is coveted by other people, so much so to where he has to lie about it and try to hide it.
She's old. She's old, and she's still beautiful. I mean, by this time, she's got to be, no way she's 80-something years old, the same age as...
Is that his thou wife?
That is thou.
Sarai?
I'm just saying,
Sarai?
She's pretty old at this point, but she's still extremely beautiful.
And not only that, he's got prestige as well. He's got a beautiful wife, and he's well-known.
Cocky. Remember, is cocky.
I mean, he knows who he is. I would say that. Remember that whenever there was like one survivor from the War of the Four Kings, he knew it was like, I just have to go see the Hebrew by the terebinth tree. Like,
yeah,
he knew,
but after he does all that,
you know
what you know what he is though? He's still by those freaking trees, as if. I rob your house.
The tree.
I didn't really want to go back at the tree.
Stop with the trees.
I'm not. Well, no, I'm not going to go. I'm just.
All right, we're not getting into the trees again.
How confident? I understand. I'm just talking about how confident this man is to do what he did. It's basically like I pull up to your house because obviously Abram's a nomad, and he goes and he basically does what he wants. So, like, let's say I'm a robber. I pull up to your house with my car. I go inside your house. I take what I want. And then I go back to my car and I chill right in your driveway. And you know where I am. And I know you know where I am. But I'm cool with it because guess what? I got God on my side. Not saying that you should be a robber and be
and you
Christian
know
at the
that
same
I
time.
know that you know where I am.
All right.
I'm just saying he was extremely confident.
He
That
was,
that
well.
definitely.
I would argue maybe in the opposite, because the word of the Lord, when it comes to him, it tells him something interesting. It says, "Do not be afraid, for I am your shield," which is something that protects. So that means he was worried about something, and I am your exceedingly great reward.
Well, when
Meaning
you're
that-
confident, you know something that they don't know.
Well,
So
I don't
he,
know. Abram
What?
wasn't confident in one respect.
He was unconfident because he's promised these amazing
Can't have
things,
any kids.
but he's
I
old.
get that, but he's
Like-
also extremely wealthy. He's got a bunch of
Yeah,
servants.
he's
that
got
are
everything.
extremely trained in
Except-
warfare. Except what?
Except that hair.
It just goes to show you.
He's really
And
worried.
you could have the whole world in riches, but if you don't have a child to destroy,
He's
and
got
to
the
put
whole
all your
world
anxieties on top of.
in his hands, guys. He's got the whole world in his hands.
He's really worried about this Eliezer guy. I mean, God forbid he inherits
Can
all
we
this
stop
stuff.
saying his name wrong? It's Eliezer.
Eliezer. Eliezer. It's got to be
Eliezer.
Eliezer.
Elizer. That's the right way.
Eliezer.
That's the right way.
That would have
Elizer.
been the next male descendant directly from Abram. But yeah, we see that his faith in God, even though he's worried about this one aspect, was enough to where he believed and it was counted to him as righteousness. And I think that's a really important thing to go over. I mean, how God comes to him in this like gentle way and shows him this beautiful things. And then Abraham trusted the Lord, but Abram trusted the Lord, but we see that he still worries. He still questions. He even asks in verse 8, he says, "Lord, how shall I know that I will inherit it?"
I mean, God, how my descendants are? I mean, I'm like 190.
You know
Yeah,
who
like,
else had
Lord,
a son?
I will give you
named
this land to
Eliezer?
inherit it. Huh?
You know who else had a son named Eliezer?
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 Who?
Moses. Moses and Zipporah, their second son was Eliezer. Gosh,
Eliezer?
whatever. I'm going to
Was
call
it
him
really?
Big E. Yeah. Their second son was Big E. And that name means help of my God in Hebrew.
No, you're right. Yeah. Gershom and Eliezer.
Which is
That's
interesting. Interesting that they chose
It's a
that name.
connection for sure. But we see that, Abraham questions when he shows him, I will bless your descendants with like a multitude of descendants, and I will give you land. And this is God coming to Abram and giving him this promise once again. And then he says, how shall I inherit it? And Nathan, I want you to read exactly how God says what to do next. If you could for me, read from verse 7 through 11. This is really interesting.
Then he said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to inherit it. And he said, Lord God, how shall I know that I will inherit it? So he said to him, bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. Then he brought all these to him and cut them in two down the middle and placed each piece opposite the other. But he did not cut the birds in two. And when the vultures came down on the carcasses, Abram drove them away. Now when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and behold, horror and great darkness fell upon him. Did you want me to continue?
No, just to 11. That was a little too far. Yeah, we see something very interesting. The reason I want to talk about this point right here is because in response to Abram's questions on how God will fulfill this promise, something very interesting happens. And I want Josh to kind of discuss this a little bit too, because he calls upon very specific animals for Abram to bring forth a sacrifice.
2 turtle doves.
And he asks,
God.
God asks Abram to do something very, very specific, which is super interesting because we see God gives him the call to the prophet, the promise in chapter 12 when we meet Abram, and we see God coming again and promising him, and then he consecrates his promise with the covenant that he makes with Abraham here. He calls for very specific animals, and he has them bring him the sacrifice, and he has them slice them in half lay him out, and then Abraham pretty much spends the rest of the day fighting off vultures from eating off these animals as they're...
Was it vultures or ravens? Either way, he was
birds of
driving
prey.
birds of prey.
And Abram definitely did that.
I'm gonna hit on that too. Like, why? What was the whole thing with, like, why didn't he cut those birds in half? But either way, basically, each one of these animals, and there's a reason why God does what he does when he chooses what he chooses, especially when it comes to sacrifice. The fact that he told Abram, get 3-year-old heifer, goat, and ram is huge. I mean, there's different ways to look at it. You could say 3, basically, as in like when the Israelites were in captivity with 400 years. It was the 300 years of the first was what was it? Either way, 300 years. My mind's going crazy right now. So I'm
you're good. You're talking about the 400 years in Egypt?
The 400 years in Egypt. And then they get rescued, right? So they get Moses comes
Exodus.
But
they get freed from the slavery.
They get freed.
Exodus. It's the great Exodus. They get exited.
Oh, dude.
Sorry, my mind was kind of running into this. Let me go back to start all that again.
So, Josh, I know you had something that you wanted to mention about the specific animals that were chosen for the sacrifice and the
why
significance.
was it a heifer?
So we got a heifer. We got a heifer, which kind of symbolizes a sacrifice. When you take normally, you got bulls, cattle. Normally, those were meant for sacrifice, and same with sheep and stuff like that. And then you have a goat and a ram, which symbolize obedience.
A female goat.
A female goat. So I guess even more obedience there.
I didn't know if goats could be female.
Well, how do they
goats can be female, but
I didn't know that.
A ram is male and a goat is female. Ram, male, goat, female.
Nice.
That's that. The little farm, a little
female
rancher.
goat.
It's a ram.
Yeah.
With a male goat.
It says a 3-year-old female goat and a 3-year-old ram. A ram is a male version of a female goat.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes. A ram is a goat, but a male. It's just two different ways to describe. Either way.
Why?
So a goat and a ram, which symbolize obedience. Basically, when God's making his covenant with Abram, he's making his covenant of time to come. Obviously, nothing has happened yet. He doesn't have a child yet. He doesn't have all these descendants yet. Nothing has formed yet. So he's creating this covenant for what is yet to come, right? Whenever you make a contract about, let's say, a car sales, right? You're making a car sale contract about a car that you're about to get, not that you have now. It's about the future. You're pretending. You're not pretending. You're promising to pay in the future. So you're creating this contract. In other words, this covenant that he's creating, that God is creating with Abram, is kind of also like a contract to simplify it.
So and
then the turtle dove and the pigeon.
That symbolizes purity.
In a way, doves usually is a symbol, as we saw also.
Well, turtle doves aren't.
I don't really. I mean, so from what I did a little bit of research, and I didn't go too
like a savior.
Deep, from what I've seen, the animals selected, there could be some. It doesn't tell us explicitly in the passage what they were to represent. Some people think that the ram represents the father, heifer is the mother-in-law, goat is the mother, dove is the son, and pigeon is daughter. But when we
turtle dove is
that's what I mean, the turtle dove, and then we see that. In context to the Bible, we see ram is like God the Father, the heifer, the mother-in-law is early Jerusalem. Some people think that the goat is to symbolize the heavenly Jerusalem. Some people think that the dove is to symbolize Jesus as the Son of God, and the pigeon to be the New Jerusalem, the church. I didn't really confirm that anywhere in the Bible. I just thought it would be interesting to see what some people have done research and thought to believe. I think that what's more important than the actual animals that are symbolized, or what the symbolize of each individual animal, is the actual act itself of, because it's an interesting thing that happens. I mean, no, but it's weird. I mean, God is like, bring me these animals, and Abraham slices them in half. I mean,
but it's also the same context with Noah. It's also the same thing with Noah. It's like, hey, start doing all this. And Noah's like, why?
Well, there's a reason, because in the ancient world, this would be known as like a covenant act. We actually see this later in Jeremiah as well. It's pretty much
exactly what I was saying.
That's what I'm saying. I was confirming what you said. It's a covenant of blood that binds two parties. Essentially, I love that. When they walk down the center of the halved animals, it was a binding pact that only if you were to break that, you would have to die. It's like to the death.
It's
promise.
A blood pact. Now, I know it sounds a little morbid, but it's basically like a blood pact.
Now, what's really interesting is that both parties are supposed to walk down the center of the split animals. And what we see later here is what, after Abraham fights off these vultures and then he gets tired, he falls into a deep sleep. It says that a great horror and a terror comes upon him.
I'll have to read that part.
Yeah, I was going to tell you. Please read
pertaining to the deep sleep.
Nathan, read this passage so we can understand. It's verses 12 to 16.
Now, when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram. Hey, you just mentioned that.
Oh, I know.
And behold, horror and great darkness fell upon him. And he said to Abram, know certainly that your descendants will be strangers in the land that is not theirs, and will serve them, and they will afflict them 400 years. And also the nation whom they serve I will judge. Afterward, they shall come out with great possessions. Now, as for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried at a good old age. But in the fourth generation, they shall return here, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete.
Yeah,
boom.
And that's so after Abram sacrifices. Get it in there.
All right. This is from Ivo Cardoza. He's a pastor. So he writes, and you'll look at the text, and it kind of lines up with it. Basically, he's basically saying not cutting the birds in half was Abraham's mistake, as he failed to cut the birds of prey. The birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. These birds of prey symbolize demons. Then Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. And the Lord tells Abram that his descendants will be enslaved and mistreated for 400 years. That curse is a result of Abram's mistake and sin of not cutting the birds. Just like with Moses later on, just like with certain other, it's the lack of obedience, because God told he told Abraham to get these animals, and he told him to cut them in half. And what does Abraham not do? He doesn't cut the birds in half. Now, because of his lack of obedience there, and it even says that in the fourth generation, basically God is telling Abraham that this is what's going to happen, and in the fourth generation you will come out of exile.
Okay. Where does God tell him?
He doesn't. Yeah, I don't know if that's necessary. Right. I mean, it's an interpretation.
Look at it.
If we read the passage, I don't see where it says to him to bring him, and then Abraham does it.
That bring me a 3-year-old. Blah, blah,
yeah.
Then he brought all of these to him, and he cut them in two down the middle and placed.
But he did not cut the birds in two.
Exactly.
But where does it say? I mean, I don't think that happened as a result of a punishment. I don't think that his descendants had 400 years of punishment because Abraham did not cut two doves and a pigeon.
It just God told him to bring me when you cut, you don't bring a live sacrifice. You bring a dead sacrifice. When you sacrifice something, what do you think? He didn't cut them? What, he just snapped their necks?
Possibly. I never looked at it like they were still alive.
That's not cutting in two. You just said that the cutting in two of the animals basically is like a blood covenant. In other words, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like a blood covenant. And because he didn't cut the birds in two, which those are they're clean animals. Those are clean animals, right for a ritualistic sacrifice. Because he didn't cut those in two.
You think that's why he had to fend off the vultures and he had a terrible prophecy?
That could be it.
I don't know. That's an interesting view, and I'm not going to say that it's wrong because I don't think that I have enough to back up and support why I think it's wrong off the top of my head. But,
I mean, listen, you said terrible. Is that a terrible prophecy?
I mean,
It's just
a
letting him know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and it kind of let him know, pretty much mapped out the rest.
But because God allows it, he allows it to happen.
Yeah,
he allowed them to go through all that. Why did he allow them to go through all that?
I don't know if it's because he didn't cut the birds in half. Because
the same
everything.
Context
Well, if that was the case,
in the wilderness for 40
yeah, but
years.
that was when he acted against God's direct commandment in a moment of anger. That was a complete different thing. Instead of doing what God said, he was mad about the grumblings of the Israelites. So we'll explain that story a little bit deeper. But that was different than, I mean, Abraham did what God asked him to do. Abram did what he asked him to do, and he.
I don't get it. How you?
Let's look back at Adam. Let's look back at Adam. When he did not obey God, God at that point curses him.
But he also confronts him and said that he did something wrong. Let me tell you why. I also, because when the dream completes and he has the vision or the prophetic dream of the descendants of 400 years in slavery, it came to pass that the sun went down and it was dark. And behold, there appeared a smoking oven and a burning torch that passed between the pieces. On the same day, the Lord made a covenant.
Am I supposed to read this part? Like, you want to just read, continue?
No, I wasn't going to have. I was just going to kind of go through it because what happens is God accepts the sacrifice and he enters. And it's funny that he represents himself as a burning oven or a burning torch and a smoking oven. And he goes through, and that's kind of the way you would solidify and solidify the covenant with somebody. So God is establishing his covenant with what he promised his descendants to be as the stars of the sky and the land that he will inherit and give to him. And he's binding himself. And one thing we know is that God himself cannot lie, and God himself will never break his covenant and his oath. And it's interesting because he holds himself to the standard here, but he doesn't yet. Abram doesn't walk through the center. He doesn't go with God. God himself does in this form.
Yes, but how normally it was done is that you would cut them in two. So Abram did his part, and then God did his part. That's basically what. But whenever you have a blood pact, and that's what this is called. It's a blood oath. Whenever you have that, you cut them all in two. God told him, "Bring me these animals."
But not all of them are always cut into. That was just specifically for this.
No, because even after, even later with something that's not even Christian or whatever, like let's say you even with kings, whenever you would create a blood oath, you would bring the animals before the king and cut them in two.
I mean, what I'm saying is that you're saying that the dream that he had and the prophecy of them going into slavery was due to his disobedience in this moment. And I'm saying that I don't know if that's true or not. I don't believe that that's true.
Then why did he cut the other animals? How did he know to cut the other animals in two, but not the turtle dove?
Don't you think that somebody that trusted in God, if he knew to, why would he not cut that? Those are actually easier to cut than all the other animals.
Those were very common. What I'm trying to say is that that was a very common thing to do. It's basically our type of saying of cross my heart and hope to die type of thing. Back then, it was.
We know we've covered this. We know that doing this was an act of a promise and why he did. But it was
serious.
I understand.
A serious thing.
And I don't think that was. I don't think it was a moment of disobedience because God establishes that he wouldn't. Why would God accept an incomplete sacrifice? Why would God even enter into the covenant if he was wrong? It's like, I'm going to punish you later. I'll accept it for now.
Maybe his blade went dull from cutting the other animals in two. And he's like, I just don't have any more blade anymore to cut these two. So I'm just going to snap their neck. Or maybe he was tired. Maybe he was so tired from cutting these animals in two. He's like, you know what? Because you have to have a pretty freaking big sword to cut a heifer in two. And you have to put a lot of muscle into it. So he's just like, you know what? I'm just going to snap their necks. But that's not a blood pact because if there's no blood coming from them, then how in the world is that supposed to be a blood pact?
You could cut it. Well, let's leave it at this because we're talking about it a little too much. I'm going to ask you guys, the listeners, if you guys think you know which one is the true, like which way do you lean? Do you think it was something related to him not cutting in half for the reason of the dream? Or if not, email us at greatermeetingpodcast@gmail.com.
God controls all things, and you never know why one thing that might not have significance could have so much significance later on in the history, right? So the one way I could bring this, like to bring it to simpler terms, In the movie Home Alone 2, Kevin is given 2 turtle doves from the shop owner of KB Toys, right? It makes no sense. Why is he giving him? He says turtle doves to him, right? We see that later in the movie, the way Kevin kind of lets the shopkeeper know that it was him that actually saved the day is he puts one of those turtle doves on the brick, and the owner, or something like that, he gives the owner a turtle dove, and the owner at the end of the movie, so what does he say? The turtle dove.
It was meant to be a sign of friendship, and there's only one dove and then one pigeon.
I know.
But friendship was
no,
brought
we're not
suffering
Nate,
and
Josh,
sacrifice.
Josh, we're not doing this. We're not breaking this down.
The turtle dove.
We're not told in the narrative what the 2 items represent, whether the oven or the torch specifically, but we do know that fire is often associated with God's judgment and his holiness. And in addition, the elements of smoke, fire, and various kind of animals are later used for sacrifice under the law to God, to point to God's future relationship with Israel. So we see God himself going down between the halved animals. This is God symbolizing his entering into a blood covenant, a covenant which cannot be broken, with Abram, saying that I will bring the promises I've made to you to pass. It's an extremely important moment. It's an extremely symbolic moment because we see up until this point, God has met him and called him with a promise that Abraham obeyed in chapter 12 of Genesis. And then here in 15, he officially makes the covenant with Abram. And this is very, very important. Now, what we'll find after this is that, if we read from, actually, go ahead, Nathan, read the rest of the chapter out from 18 to 21.
No, dude, this is a bunch of rivers.
Yeah.
I'm not reading that. It's just the name of a bunch of big named rivers.
God essentially points out the area in which he will inherit, as well as telling him.
He points out the land, but it's like he's pointing it out. Like, you see how long this name of a river is?
I wanted to see you say these.
I'm not saying those names. It's crazy.
So this moment ends. Abram has this extremely interesting experience with the word of God that came to him. Which
Euphrates, I could say. That's an easy one. The rest of them.
Exactly.
But now we're still at the problem of where's them kids?
Where are them kids?
Where's the smoking pot?
Where's the child Abram's supposed to have? Because he has no heir or hair.
Exactly. And we see that
we're gonna see the answer to
Did
that.
we touch on the oven?
Yeah. I mean, I kind of briefly touched on it. Yeah.
What oven?
Well, God he came down in the form of a burning torch and a smoking oven when he passed through. When he went through the halves.
A Viking oven?
So my kind of like, all right, let's look at this from a different angle is whenever God shows up, like God, all right, whenever he shows up to anybody, it's never a person. Obviously, we got Jesus. All right, let's not get that into a whole confusing mix-up right here. So we got Jesus. He's obviously a person. But when God's showing up to Abram in this, and it has to be God. It cannot be a messenger, cannot be an angel. It has to be God because God is making this covenant with Abram. So when God is going through the animals as a smoking oven and a torch, in other words, God has so much energy that it's all you see is fire and smoke. And I mean, let's look at even Moses when God shows up to Moses on the mountaintop. All you see is smoke everywhere. You see fire. You see lightning and thunder. You don't ever see God, but you see all the effects of God.
Yes, but it's not just because he has so much energy that it can't help but combust. Now, yes, our Lord is an all-consuming fire, but he came in the form of a torch and an oven. These are to symbolize specific things.
That's the way he saw it. That's the way he saw it, and that's the way he wrote it.
That's the way he came.
Let's just say that even with Elijah, with the flaming chariots, right, when he saw the flaming chariots.
That has nothing to do with what we're talking
like
about.
Like a whirlwind. That could have been a UFO or a spaceship.
UFOs, man.
Or it could have been a helicopter and a time traveler that went back in the day and he was shooting napalm everywhere.
UFO so bad.
Listen, it's very important when we see.
But it could have been.
And even in the story, we're going to bring up, it's funny that you mentioned it because we're going to discuss the ways in which God manifests himself when he speaks, when he shows himself. That's going to be a very important theme in this episode even. So it's interesting that you say that, because that's going to play heavily into what happens next in chapter 16. So God, in this moment with the covenant, chooses to represent himself as a smoking oven and a burning torch that passes between the pieces. And again,
and the word of the Lord.
Well,
At the very beginning of the chapter,
it was the word of the
shows
Lord
up.
appeared.
The word of the Lord appeared. Exactly.
It's very important. You see what I'm alluding to. But this covenant happens. This was a very marking point in Abram's life. But he still has issues. All this happens. He's promised. He has this really interesting experience. But time passes, and him and Sarai can still not have children. And unfortunately, Sarai comes up with a little scheme to try to help God along. Nathan, if you could read the first 3 verses of chapter 16.
Genesis chapter 16.
You don't have to read. They'll say the word Genesis every time.
Now Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, and she had an Egyptian maidservant whose name was Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, "See now, the Lord has restrained me from bearing children. Please, go into my maid, perhaps I shall obtain children by her." And Abram heeded the voice of Sarai. Then Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. After Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan.
Mm-hmm. So,
by the way, to be his wife, in other words, means they had intercourse.
Yeah, so he lay with her. And what's one thing that's interesting
it's
about
the biblical way of saying laid with her.
They knew each other.
Sex.
Sarah is obviously still barren, and she's there with Abram throughout this whole period. Sarai is witness to the covenant through all these events that happens, and she believes what will happen, and she knows that God is true to be his promises, because she's right there next to Abram throughout this whole process. But she sees it's not happening. She knows she's coming on in years, so she tries to do what a lot of us try to do and help God along with coming up with a worldly solution to something that God is supposed to handle.
Yeah, God promised him something. But the woman, like, hey, eat this apple. Hey, sleep with this Egyptian.
I'm not trying to say all women are always wrong and everything.
Yeah, but here's the thing: this whole like with Sarai offering Hagar to Abram, was a pretty common thing back in the day. They alluded basically it was an old Assyrian marriage contract where if you can't have children, your maidservant or a concubine of your choosing would have the child for you.
Yeah,
and obviously would be greatly paid. But Hagar was probably extremely beautiful because even royalty. Whenever you choose slaves, that's what she was. I mean, she was a servant. That's a nice way of putting it. But in other words, whenever you choose slaves or even servants to be a part of your household, because you have the outside servants. Those are the ugly ones. Those are the ones you keep outside. The old ones, the ones that you don't want anybody to see, but the ones that represent you, because these maidservants represent you. And whenever you walk around and it was common. The princesses or the queens or even the kings, they would have beautiful people around them. It alludes to basically how much money you have, how much respect you have, how much power you have, that you could say, like, because back then it was also hard to stay healthy. So if you had a beautiful, healthy maidservant, that just showed and represented that, hey, we have power. So
Abraham you mean probably to tell me that a powerful person had beautiful people surrounding them. Curious how that's the same way today.
Do you think that that's why Abram doesn't even argue a little bit? He doesn't go like, no, God said that it'd be through my body and it has to be through you, right? He didn't even like try. It just literally said that he heeded the voice of his wife, Sarai. He just, the first time she's like, maybe you should do this. He almost jumped. He's like, all right, cool. Let's do this. This is probably how God wanted to do it. No? That's just me?
Josh?
Amen.
You said something, you just stopped talking.
I know, but, that's all I have to say. I think it's funny that he just, like, straight up, nobody ever talks about that Abram doesn't really even fight this, like, all right, I'll sleep with this woman.
Because why would he fight? It's basically, she gave him a hall pass, and he's like, oh, all right, let's do this.
Exactly.
So, I mean,
Now, this is something that leads to many problems down in the future of Israel. If you want to talk about things that they do wrong that will lead to consequences down the line. I don't know if cutting the pigeon and the turtle dove was something that led to that, which I'm mostly positive it's not.
whatever.
But this will definitely cause some issues, and just to see how. I mean, Nathan, if you could read for us from verse.
Listen,
4 to
readers,
6.
obviously read while you're listening to this episode. I strongly suggest, and every episode, have your Bible open and fact check us.
Even if you're driving,
even if you're working or you're at school,
if you're driving, have it open. Don't look at the road. Trusting God to protect you.
If the police pulls you over, just say, I was reading my Bible. Because what's he going to do to you? Put you in jail? And then you'll be like Paul. And God's going to let you out of jail.
Want to hear something funny?
That's not true.
So
at
I
all.
got pulled over one time for like the cop said, claim I was looking at my phone. But what happened was you had just had your kid and you texted a picture of your newborn.
Oh yeah.
And I was looking at the picture and I was like, but look, officer, look at this. And the guy's like, oh, so you were looking at your phone. He gave me a ticket so quick. I essentially just gave him
rightfully
proof.
So. You deserve it because.
And I was like, wow, other people don't care about other people's babies. Yeah, at all.
I care.
They don't.
Anyway.
When people show me their babies and I don't know them, I'm like, keep your baby to yourself. It's cute, but keep it to yourself.
So he went into Hagar and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress became despised in her eyes. Then Sarai said to Abram, my wrong be upon you. I gave my maid into your embrace, and when she saw that she had conceived, I became despised in her eyes? The Lord judge between you and me. So Abram said to Sarai, indeed your maid is in your hand. Do to her as you please. And when Sarai dealt harshly with her, she fled from her presence.
Yeah, so we see the whole switch up here. Because up to this point, it was really impossible to tell who was the one that couldn't have children. Because sometimes it's the man's fault, and sometimes it's the woman's fault. And they didn't really have the technology back then to like test and see, like, oh, is it because my sperm count is low?
We obviously see that it was
but
her. This
is the way that like almost confirmed like a suspicion for many years, probably leading up. And for a woman to be barren, it was like one of the greatest. It was one of the greatest disgraces that it was like literally looked at as if you were cursed by God. Like,
what if it was the other way around? What if it was the other way around? Because what if would Abram say, "Hey, go to my maid man or whatever"?
No, that's not how that
exactly. Works. It was more. I'm not saying that the women didn't matter. I'm just saying that it was mainly about the bloodline of the man. It was never about the bloodline of the female.
Well,
but obviously, with Mary, that's a whole different other thing.
This is well, yeah, that's one point that completely like, well, then what about Joseph and Mary?
That's a whole other topic.
Well, actually, what's funny is that according to Joseph's line and how he was in that family, that's how whatever. That we're going to touch on a lot of interesting points there when we get there. But yeah, she literally has an attitude with Sarai, and she pretty much looks at her like, yeah, this was all you. Our master, quote unquote, couldn't ever conceive his heir because you were the one. Even though she can't control that.
Beat her.
She treated her harshly. I don't know if she straight up put her hand.
That's a nice way of saying I'm going to. She didn't scold her, and then Hagar was like, "I'm running away." No, she beat this woman.
She did
as she was pregnant.
As she was harshly enough to where it was better to run away in the wilderness, pregnant and alone, than to spend any time.
Do hurt, man. They do hurt.
Yeah, it was that bad, and it was a pretty terrible situation all around because this scenario should have never come upon their household of Abram and Sarai and Hagar. This should have never happened because Abram was called to trust in the word of the Lord and know that he is able to do the impossible. Look at what he's done for him up until this point and how he's carried him. And Abram is a man of faith and a man of trust in the Lord, but he is also at the same time a human man. And he does have these moments of questioning weakness where he wants to figure out how, and we always try to like work out an angle to see what we need to do to make God's promises to us come true, not believing that God can do the impossible. And something interesting happens. Now, she runs away, Hagar does, from the house, and she flees into the wilderness, but she has a very interesting encounter. Nathan, if you could read from chapter 7 to 12. Yes, sir.
Now the angel of the Lord found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, where have you come from? And where are you going? She said, I'm fleeing from the presence of my mistress Sarai. The angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress and submit yourself under her hand. Then the angel of the Lord said to her, I will multiply your descendants exceedingly, so that they shall not be counted for multitude. And the angel of the Lord said to her, behold, you are with child, and you shall bear a son. You shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord has heard your affliction. He shall be a wild man. His hand shall be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all of his brethren.
Mm-hmm. Now,
you want me to keep reading?
No, you're good. And some very interesting points there.
Yeah. The one thing, and the question that I had, and this is the only question I'm going to propose to you two. Until now, it's God that has come and spoke to everybody. God himself. This is the first time, not the only time, but this is the first time that we see an angel of the Lord speaking to somebody. So it's like a representative of God. Why an angel to Hagar?
Well, it's very interesting how we look upon this passage, and a lot of people have noticed the same thing. And it's interesting how Hagar refers to this angel and how the terminology. So first thing we notice is that an angel of the Lord said to her, return to your mistress, submit. And then it says the angel of the Lord said to her, I will multiply your descendants exceedingly, so that they shall not be counted for multitude. And an angel said, behold, you are with child. And it's like this quote unquote representative is he just speaking a quote from God at this point? Or is it,
he's a messenger of the Lord.
Where does he get the audacity to say that I will do anything? Because any other place with the angel says, the Lord will do this, behold, you will do this. I am come from the Lord, don't be afraid.
Maybe God was just tired of coming down and dealing with these people.
Well, what's interesting is also, no.
God wasn't tired creating the whole shebang. But
it's just so much drama.
This little house drama.
He's already wiped out the whole world, and he's thinking about doing it again. I don't think so.
I don't think so. No, no. God wasn't frustrated.
All right,
you go, angel.
So, let's continue this. Let's continue this topic on why it was an angel and not God himself. Why is this the first time that we see an angel? And obviously, we're so early on into the Bible at the moment, where the beginning of the Bible is obviously all of God. God's not going to send his messenger to start creating the world. Now, we have seen angels come down with so whenever the Lord said, with the Tower of Babel, let's go down and
see what they have built.
Let's go down and see what they have built. Let's go down and scatter them across the world. Basically, that is a plural. That is obviously, we've touched on it before, but more like an entourage. He came down with an army or a group or whatever. I don't think it was the Holy Spirit, Jesus, and God all coming down. But
let's look at something real quick. Okay. Whenever the angel completes his prophecy and gives her this blessing, then she called, verse 15 says, then she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her, you are the God who sees. For she said, I have also seen him who sees me. I want to say here is that the ways, just like with the burning torch and the smoking oven, just like the word of the Lord that came to Abram, the ways and complexities in which God represents himself to humanity and speaks, just like he came down in the garden even in the cool of the day, as what he did.
Yes.
What I want to try to bring out, and even when it's read in the original Hebrew, when we see these ways, oftentimes when they see how they refer to them, we have to think about, what I like to think about is that these are the ways that God himself represented to humanity. Now, in the form of the Word of God, or in the form of what I like to say is Jesus Christ, represented in the form that we could conceive, speaking, because she calls him the Lord. And we're going to see in the next part of the story kind of something similar that's repeated.
Yeah,
I thought about that too. At first, I was like, why was it something? It was almost like she wasn't good enough to get spoken to, like Abram, like Noah, like Adam.
No, that's not it.
No, actually, it was the contrary. She was brokenhearted. She was down, and God came to her. And this is one of the only times you'll see that the angel of the Lord appeared, and does not have to start with, "Do not be afraid."
Exactly. In other words, let's just say that this wasn't the first time something like this has happened, but it's the first time that we see it recorded.
Well, I would say not that. I would say more of he came in this.
Dude, they're not.
They came in a comforting spirit. It came in a way in which it was meant to.
Yeah, and then when Gabriel shows
encourage.
up to Mary, he's not showing up with a comforting message. He's showing up all
message.
scary.
It was a
tough message. I get that, but I'm just saying that there could have been. This could have been a more. It probably happened more than once. Even with the messengers that we're about to see.
I don't think it was something because it was something they got used to. That's why she wasn't afraid.
I think it's something that they got used to. I think it's something that they got used to. We got the Tower of Babel. We got the Babylonians. We got the Assyrians. Even when you look at Babylonian artifacts, they have giants. They have all these crazy creatures in the artifact. I'm just saying that at that time, we see a lot of crazy things happen, and I don't think that it was beyond measure to see an angel of the Lord show up.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that she refers to him as the Lord. I have seen him who sees me.
Yes,
it didn't say I have seen the angel
of the Lord.
I believe it was a representation, a manifestation.
Yes, it was a representation of the Lord, but it wasn't the Lord himself. It was a representative of the Lord. So like if back in the day when you would send a representative of the king to another king, the king's not going to walk up to another king and start talking to him. He's going to send the representative of the king to that other king and to speak to him. Now that other king is going to talk to that representative as if he is the other king, and the representative is speaking with the power of the king that gave him that power.
I understand, but I'm talking about more of in the context of this narrative. I know how a messenger works.
You're talking about from a symbolic point of view.
No,
I'm talking about it from a literal point of view.
No, I'm talking about literally. The angel literally says,
Lord.
"I will multiply your descendants exceedingly," and then she refers to him as. Then she called the name of the Lord who spoke to her. That's the Bible talking. That's not me.
Yes, but if we take your context, literally,
the Bible's
basically,
context.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, the Bible context, but your way of saying it,
your interpretation.
Your interpretation. Thank you, Nathan. It says the angel of the Lord clearly. The fact that she's saying Lord is a sign of respect to that angel, not calling that angel of the Lord, because that would be very contradictory of everything if she's calling that angel Lord when the Bible is telling us clearly that that is an angel of the Lord. You understand what I'm saying?
What I'm saying
I get where you're coming from, but that gets super confusing.
Are you trying to say that that's like a Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
Nah, dude.
It just doesn't make sense.
Here's what's very comforting about the message. He shall be a wild man, and his hand shall be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he
so
shall
Ishmael,
in
the father of Muslims.
He's like, your kid's gonna be one kid that like is gonna fight everyone. Everyone's gonna fight him. He's gonna live in everybody's presence. Mm. How comforting is that? She must have been like, oh, okay, thanks.
a lot of Islam, they tie back to their first basic. Why they say that he is the father of Islam, and I understand that is even a controversy in itself because some Islam followers don't see it as that way. But in the Quran, it talks about Ishmael is basically in 1954. I don't know. It's not like I've read the Quran, so. But not in the Quran 1954. I'm assuming that's chapter 19. Verse 54, it talks about Ishmael being a prophet and an apostle, and a lot of Muslims trace their lineage back to Ishmael.
Is there anything known about Ishmael?
There's a lot known about Ishmael.
There is a lot known about Ishmael.
He's considered to be the ancestor. So let's the story pretty much finishes with she goes back. Hagar goes back to Abram and she bears the son. And Abram's about 86 at this point, and the name of the child is Ishmael. So now that Abram has a son, this child Ishmael is known as the ancestor of most Arab people. And they say that he was one of the first ones to have settled in the area of Mecca, which is one of the most holy places for the Islamic faith. That's why Abram is considered the father of three faiths, of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, because this is one of the roots. Him and Esau, and there's other places as well that they base a lot of Muslim-based religion.
Do you know what the word Muslim means?
Out of, or Islamic-based religion out of this one of these starting points. No,
so
rephrase that. Do you know what the word Muslim means? The word Muslim means one who submits, and why they get that is when the angel of the Lord is speaking to Hagar, she says, return to your mistress and submit yourself unto her hand. And that's the key word, is to submit.
Ishmael means God will hear.
Yeah,
so I'm not saying
another thing that's interesting
Ishmael. I'm saying
is that the name, the Lord gives the name to this child that wasn't supposed to be born, which is really important. No?
So it's extremely important.
Can I ask one question a little bit out of left field? So it's like, we had Adam, right? You can put him on the Mount Rushmore of like goats in the Bible, right?
Okay.
I mean, first,
our biblical, you hear it here first, guys. First official nominee for Mount Rushmore.
So, I mean, Adam, I put Adam on there. You got Noah. Well, I mean,
we could.
It's debatable. But Abraham, I mean, father of three major religions.
I think he's.
I mean, this guy's responsible for a lot of controversy in terms of his descendants.
Well, whenever he's like, I am the God of your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It always starts with Abraham. Doesn't start with Noah.
So, I mean, I'm putting him on the Mount Rushmore, man. He's a pretty big one.
He's important, and Ishmael is important because at this point, he has an heir. He has somebody that he considers his heir, but he's 86, so
he's the greatest father of nations of all time.
This is 11 years, right? Because he left the land of his fathers when he's 75.
Dude, he's the father of Islam and Judaism and Christianity.
And when Ishmael is born, he's 86. But then even more time passes. All of this happens. She returns home. I don't think it was peace. I don't think Sarai was just all of a sudden like, it's cool now.
Doesn't it boggle your mind that his kids birthed all these?
God literally kept telling him. He had to come as like, Luke, I'm going to make you the father of many nations.
Listen,
a lot of people are going to look up to you.
Everybody thinks their children are special. This person's children actually were.
You know what's wild, though? It's not just nations. It's everlasting nations. Because when you have, like, let's say Islam, that's a nation. It's not just Jerusalem or it's not Rome.
I wouldn't use the word everlasting.
What do you mean?
It's a long lasting. How about lasting?
The Islamic nation eventually will end. The only one that will be everlasting is the kingdom of God.
But even Christ, that prophecy where Ishmael's descendants, his hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand will be against his. That whole prophecy comes into fruition with Muhammad later on. Basically, in the Quran, you got 55 verses of only about war.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like,
we lost you, dog. I don't know what just happened.
We hear you're back.
No, but I mean, like, just there's war in the Quran.
I'm just saying,
feed, like, with.
We're trying to speed up to catch up with you. So when Josh goes back, there's 50 verses of war in the Quran. We're just like, what?
All I'm saying is that with the Nation of Islam, obviously you see throughout all of history, there's constant war back and forth, whether they're fighting with themselves or they're fighting with another nation, or they're fighting with
never
Christianity.
Christianity. There's never any war. There's never any war.
There is war with Christianity as well. I'm just saying that
lots. Crusades.
They are, yes, but who are they fighting? The Christian Crusades were fighting. The Christian Crusades were fighting Islam, and Islam was fighting them.
There's a lot of times with Christianity just kind of murdered a lot of people, or not real Christians, but like the name of Christianity.
The Crusades,
yes,
a lot of Christians killed a lot of
all
Christians.
I'm saying is that God told him that Ishmael's descendants were going to basically constantly be at war.
Yes.
And it's come to pass. They are constantly at war. That's all I was trying to say.
Well, let's get on with the next meeting of God and
so Abram,
we gotta start moving forward here.
No, you're good. The Abram was 75 when he left his father's house, and at this point, after Ishmael's birth, he's now 99 years old when we meet him in chapter 17, when God, after walking through the halves of the animals and establishing his covenant and marking himself, God, into a covenant with Abram, now comes to Abram and requires from him and reconfirms his covenant and forces Abram to enter into that promised covenant.
It's
Nathan,
coming, Abram. It's
coming. If you can read, it's finally time to go into the name change. I'm only going to have you read from verses 4 to 5 because I'm just so excited. I want to get right into it.
All right.
God comes
I'm
to
going to read from verse 3 because it makes no sense.
Yeah. Well, God comes to Abram
let me
when he's 99.
I could just read from 1 to 5.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am Almighty God. Walk before me and be blameless. And I will make my covenant between me and you and will multiply you exceedingly. Then Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with you, and you shall be a father of many nations. No longer shall your name be Abram.
Yes.
But your name shall be Abraham.
Abraham. Thank the Lord. I don't have to say Abram anymore. Oh my gosh.
For I have made you a father of many nations. I will make you exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of you, and kings shall come from you. And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you and their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be God to you and your descendants after you.
And also I'll give your descendants the land.
Also I give to you and your descendants after you the land in which you are a stranger, all the land of Canaan, as an everlasting possession, and I will be their God.
Boom. Finally. I don't have to mess this up anymore, everybody. His name is Abraham. I never have to say Abram again. I can say Abraham.
It's going to be funny when you keep saying
In other words, his name change is a rebirth.
His name change is a sign of a changing of his identity.
His name change to Abraham.
His name change.
Threw a ham in there.
Yeah.
One thing he's not allowed to eat.
No, he didn't throw a ham in there. He threw a ha.
Ha. You know why? He goes, ha. Because what's interesting is that, well, I'll bring it up later. But finally, God comes. And think about Abraham's position at this point.
You keep saying Abram now, I'm telling you.
Just give up. Just give up.
Think about Abraham.
Think about Abraham. So much time has passed. So much time has passed for him. And he's been faithful, and he's in a strange land, and he has this child that is not with his wife, but with his mistress, or his wife's mistress. And God finally meets him right before he turns 100. He's like, am I about to go? Because people aren't living as long as they used to, and I'm getting old.
There's another part of this covenant that's coming. That's going to be kind of like, oh, man.
The nice part would have been if God was just like, listen, I'm just going to change your name. That's all you have to do to show that you're a sign. But no, God says, I'm going to make you a new. I want you to now identify yourself.
So new that we're going to give you such a new thing.
God wanted Abraham to be completely he wanted to inhabit the identity of the promise that he gave him, and to establish that as a sign to completely change him who he thought he was into who he will be.
As for you, you shall keep my covenant, and you and your descendants after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant which you shall keep between me and you and your descendants after you. every male child among you shall be circumcised.
Wait, what?
And you shall be circumcised in the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you.
Ouch.
He who is 8 days old among you shall be circumcised, every male child in your generations, he who was born in your house or bought with money from any foreigner who was not your descendant, he who was born in your house and he who was bought with money must be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, that person shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant.
Okay,
Oh, gosh. Yeah, so this is going to be, Josh.
well, before we go to the whole circumcised situation, kind of, we're done with the Abraham name change.
We're gonna, because I mean, Sarah also gets her name changed too.
Sarai.
Okay, so we'll come back to that.
We're gonna come back to what it means, because I also have like the meanings and the comparisons, what it is too. But God not only changes his identity, but now wants a physical mark in their body of every male, just like Josh said, because it's the male line that kind of they follow according to the covenant. There will have to be a sign. But what is interesting is it's not just those born into it, not just Abraham and his son. I can't believe you called me, dude. Like, I'm gonna keep doing that now because you said something.
Sure.
It is interesting that happened, because when God creates Adam, he creates him and he says, this is good. Basically, if everything God creates is perfect, Adam is the final object of perfection that God creates in his image. So for later on, for God to say every male shall have his foreskin cut, that is wild. Like, it's basically, I mean, I know why he did what he did, and I get it, but it's interesting that God would have that be the sign. You know what I'm saying?
What do you think that means, Josh?
Well, you get into it first.
Well, I mean, I don't have anything to really get. I mean, it's a sign. I mean, what happens? It's like it's the sign of where your seed comes from. It's like the seed of the descendants and the blessing. God says to.
Could it be
sacrifice.
a tithe, basically, because it's the seed of future? Basically,
No, I don't think that at all.
God's taking a tenth.
I know that's not the answer for sure.
I just.
They're not taking a tenth of the people.
No, that is not the right.
That's a crazy way to look at it.
Yeah, no, God is not.
But what if
asking
it
for,
was?
You will tithe me with your foreskin. I mean, technically, David. Never mind. We're not going to get into it. But
that is part of God's pact.
this is a very important thing. So important that when the church is founded and there are new converts, there is seriously huge debates considering like whether or not people joining the faith of accepting Jesus have to become circumcised. And Paul has to run into that. And they have to like actually come out with an official statement saying, no, you're not under the law anymore. You're under the blood. You're under the
new covenant.
The new covenant. But this is the old covenant. This is the establishment of the official law that we're going to build up into. We're going to develop when the Mosaic law comes in, or the Levitical law of the children of God. This is where it starts. This is the sign of the covenant, the name change of Abraham, and the sign in the flesh of not just Abraham and his children, but of everybody, every male in their household, even the servants, even those that are bought, even those that are tending. And anybody that doesn't, it says that they will be cast out. You'll be completely kicked out from God's elect, God's chosen people that will inherit and have seed that will be multiplied like the stars of the sky. It's extremely important because God required it as a sign of his identity change and as a sign of the covenant written into the flesh. Now, God also appears and says and changes Sarai's name into Sarah, adding that H. Up until that point, she was known as someone who was barren, as someone that couldn't have children. But God reconfirmed and said, no, I'm going to change her name and identity as well. And it's through her that I'm going to make you a father of many nations. It's going to be through her seed and your seed that you will be the child, or you will be the father of the ones that I choose. I will bless her, and she shall be the mother of nations. Kings of peoples shall be from her. And this is what's interesting. In verse 17, Abraham falls on his face and laughs and said in his heart, shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old? And shall Sarah, who is 90 years old, bear a child? And Abraham said to God, oh, that Ishmael might live before you. It's really interesting that he laughs at God, because God literally reconfirms what he didn't believe, what she didn't believe, and Ishmael's now there. And don't get me wrong, Abraham loves Ishmael, and he wants him to be his firstborn, because that's up until then. He's like a child of his old age. It's who he believes is the way that his promise of God is going to be fulfilled. But God literally says, no, I'm going to change her name too. I'm going to show you exactly what I have planned.
The interesting thing,
circumcising was a way, if the circumcision, I don't know, I'm still stuck on this.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it was a way to basically like show that you are with
okay,
the people.
break. Because 106:54. This guy really needs to go pee. 106. 1 hour and 6 minutes, 54 seconds. Father Abraham. Excuse me, that wasn't a pee. That was a pee.
Did you hear it?
Mm-hmm.
Yo, I had to pee so bad. It was bad, man. I don't know what to say. Time for more tea.
I love hamburger helper. That's so nice. All my helpers.
Hamburger helps the most. Yeah, I don't really have too much on the symbolic meaning of circumcision and why it's the cutting of that flesh. It's just,
Okay.
what God asked him to do. I'm not going to dwell too much on it.
And we're back in 5,
All right.
4, 3, 2, 108.
So basically, I'm still kind of hung up on the act of circumcision, on why it was the foreskin. I know we talked about that it could have been like basically like a tithe. And I know that we laughed about it, but at the same time, it's like sacrifice has to be made. When Abram and God made this covenant, when God made the covenant with Abram, there was sacrifices to be made. So even with the fact of cutting off the foreskin, that was basically a sacrifice, right?
It's definitely not easy to do.
It's not easy to do. It's extremely painful. But even as I'm just trying to imagine it, like how everybody, hey, are you a Jew? Show me your penis. It's like,
yeah,
I'm just wondering.
Know
there were other sides. I promise. There was like the growing.
I get that, but it's just
them
like
walking around chafed all day.
The final test of if you're a Jew, like, come into the back room with me, man.
No, that's
Let me
not.
see.
Stop. So what ends up working out in the favor?
A Jew.
All right. So there's actually quite a hygienic benefit to those that would, and we'll know that the children of God were going to be spending quite a bit of time in the desert, in dusty places, and in hard times. So that actually ends up working in their favor. I think that kind of came, from God as well. But the sign, I think it's symbolic to the point of, what Abraham was, his promise was, and it's for his seed to be multiplied, and that he will be the son of many nations. And it's also a physical mark, other than just given a name and given a sign that separates them from the rest of the world, because it's weird to say, but like
they are cleaner.
What else? I guess, yeah.
When you circumcise, it's basically, it's cleaner. God has this whole thing with Israel on to keep clean, with washing of the feet, with of how to store your food and stuff like that. He's trying to keep them clean, and he's trying to have them stand out from the rest.
Yeah, the only thing is,
not saying that you have to be circumcised. That's not the whole thing, because there's pros and cons to that.
Well, modern day with hygiene and the way we bathe, it's not as necessary for stuff like that. I mean, it's more of just it's normal. It's normalized now. It's like what's more common in the world now. But I'm not really going to get into the way people have their penises. I just know that the Bible asked Abraham to do this. And Abraham does this not only just to himself, but he was 99 years old when he circumcised his flesh of his foreskin. And poor Ishmael was 13 years old. And then everybody else in the whole camp and the whole tribe. Remember, he had a lot of guys. Everybody is like
people that were bought.
Dude,
imagine them. They're like, yeah, we don't. You know what? Keep the money. Abram, I don't want to be part of this. I work for you. For free.
I want to see that meeting when he calls everybody together. It's just like, all right, everybody got an announcement.
Listen, God spoke to me and only me. You guys didn't hear God. I heard God. You need to cut this part of your penis off.
Y'all know that little dangly part of the end of your Wheaties? Yeah, we're going to slice that off.
It had to have been a 3-person job. One person holding the guy. One person pulling the foreskin, and one person with the knife.
You think Abraham did it to like everybody, or did like they just aside like everybody do it to yourself?
I think Abraham did it to everybody.
Probably made sure everybody, because it said if you're not circumcised, you get cast out.
Yeah,
he was the butcher. He was the butcher.
Yeah, not a fun day. It's definitely like Josh said, a sacrifice, but it's a very important symbolic moment.
What if he missed, bro?
I'm sure that.
Do you think by the end of it, Abraham was like, I never thought I'd be good at doing that of it. Like I developed a skill to do that.
Was it like a carrot chop or like a tomato slice?
Dude. I'm not getting into the exact way that they circumcised. I'm sure it was something sharp, hopefully.
All right, let's stop talking about circumcision. We're talking about this a lot.
Yeah, let's.
This has been a good hour on circumcision.
It hasn't been an hour, but it is time to move on. Sarah gets her name changed. Abraham laughs at God when he says that she will be the mother of his children, that is going to be the ones that he promised the descendants and the blessing to. And he literally falls on his face and laughs to himself. And I think God literally says, no, actually straight up, it's going to be Sarah's son who will establish the covenant with. And then Abraham intercedes on behalf of his son Ishmael. Nathan, if you could read verse 20 of chapter 17. It's very interesting because it's after Abraham, like, no, but if he would at least go before you, because he loves this child. This is his child. This is his son.
And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. Behold, I have blessed him and will make him fruitful and will multiply him exceedingly. He shall beget 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac,
boom,
whom Sarah shall bear to you at this time next year.
Mm.
Then he finished talking with him, and God went up from Abraham.
God went up from Abraham, the way that he manifested before Abraham in that moment. Now, let's look at these names a little bit.
He went up.
Abram, the name means high father or exalted father. When God changed his name to Abraham, the name Abraham means father of nations. So remember I said he inhabited that. He identifies with the role of the promise and covenant which God makes with him. Sarai means my princess, but Sarah means mother of nations. And what's interesting is that he says that your son Isaac literally translates to laughter or one who laughs. And it's interesting because not only Abraham laughs, but as we continue on this story, we'll see that it's still kind of funny to them when they think about how old they are. And the chapter ends with all the men of the house, born in the house or bought with money from a foreigner, were circumcised with them. And that's where we'll stop talking about circumcision. But I'm just saying that must have been a tough day.
It was a tough week.
Yeah, it was a tough month. I don't know how long that takes to heal. I just feel bad for Ishmael because he's not even the coveted son of promise. And he's like, why do I? God just said, I'm not the one. Do I really? Okay, it's fine. Never mind.
I feel bad for Eliezer.
Eliezer? I don't think he was there. I don't think he was there with him.
What are you talking about? He was
obviously back home.
part. Dude, he was part of the. I get that, but he ended up getting circumcised as well after he just found out that he's not just found out, but he's no longer the.
When Ishmael was born, when Ishmael was born, he was no longer the heir. So even if he was with them, he's
put yourself in his shoes a little bit. I mean, like that
just
guy.
Feel bad for this guy.
For who?
He thought he was going to get it all.
Easier. This guy.
I don't think he cared.
I don't think he cared that he would have.
I think he cared a lot. They probably made plans. They were going to pull mortgages on houses and everything.
For sure. That sweet real estate by the cherubic trees of Mamre, where we see that the Lord appears to Abraham yet again while he's sitting there in the tent in the heat of the day. Now
we're chapter 18 of Genesis.
We have moved into chapter 18 where God now appears to Abraham sometime after, not too long after, but sometime after.
Well, is this time next year? So it's been a year.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
maybe it's been a few months.
It had to have been some time.
Because Abraham had to have healed up before he could physically conceive a child. I'm assuming that.
Exactly. It must
the
have been.
The fact that Abraham was still constantly going at it at 100.
Built different.
I mean,
no blue chew during that day, I'll tell you that. Nathan, if you could please read for us verses 1 through 3.
Every time I take a piece of ice, you ask me to read. Okay.
Maybe don't chew ice during an audio podcast recording?
Yeah. Then the Lord appeared to him by the terebinth trees of Mamre.
I'm just kidding. I don't know what to say.
As he was sitting in the tent door in the heat of the day. So he lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing by him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the ground, and said, My Lord, if I have now found favor in your sight, do not pass on by your servant. Please, let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And I will bring a morsel of bread, that you may refresh your hearts. After that you may pass by, insomuch as you have come to your servant.
Yeah, and this is just
what they said to him after that was very, very profound.
Oh, yeah, but
they said, do as you have said.
It's interesting. It's interesting to say the least because it's another one of those complex ways that God reveals himself to his servants. I mean, now we have 3 men. But
obviously men.
But
because it says men.
Abraham, now we're reading it literally, huh?
Well, yeah, we were reading literally before.
But Abraham doesn't say, my lords. He says, my Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, please do not pass by your servant. And what he does is he washes their feet, which is like a sign of when you enter into somebody's tent, and it's like a very important thing to do. It's very hygienic. And then he asks them to rest under them trees. I'm sorry. And and I will bring, he brought him bread, and he bought honey and milk, and he slaughtered a calf. And what's interesting is these men eat. I don't know why I think that's so interesting. Like, after he had prepared his set before them, he stood in, and as they ate, and he literally stood by them while they sat relaxed in the shade, and he brought before them a calf and butter and milk and bread cakes. And
do you think that he knew?
Where did you get honey from?
I don't know where I got honey from. I think it was just milk and butter. My bad, not honey.
Do you think that he knew that they were sent from the Lord, or was he just being hospitable?
I think he did because he was like looking up, looked down, looked up, and they're just there.
And he ran from the doorway and said, my Lord, I have found favor in your sight. Do not pass your servant. I don't think someone that doesn't recognize who's in front of them would say that and then hastily prepare an offering of the nicest
as fast as you can.
Literally,
get the butter. Make some
slaughter the calf. Kill him now. Kill him
fast.
Do you want us to cut him in half again? No, just slice his throat or something.
Where are the pigeons?
No. But quickly, he making measures a fine meal. Okay, so he
said to them, "Where's Sarah, your wife?" That's what they said to him.
Yeah,
they said to him, "Where's Sarah, your wife?"
I don't think he said it like that. I don't know why you're reading it like that.
Said,
Sarah, your
Where's
wife?
Sarah, your wife?
Stop reading it like that.
Right. They said, "Where's Sarah, your wife?"
Wait. It said they said to him. Did they say it in unison? That must have been.
They said to him, "Where is Sarah, your
creepy.
wife?"
I'm telling
all
you,
three of them all at once.
It's a.
Where is Sarah?
All right, for real. Then they said to him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?"
Stop reading it.
So he said, "Here in the tent."
Riveting.
And he said, "I will certainly return to you according to the time of life. And behold, Sarah, your wife, shall have a son."
Why is it he said and not they said?
Suffice it to say, in parentheses now, Sarah was listening in a tent door which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in age, and Sarah had passed the age of childbearing. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, "After I had grown old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord, being old also?"
God, she knew she didn't want Abraham. He's old at this point.
And the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh?"
Oh gosh, can you imagine getting called out by the Lord? These beings that just appeared. Let's just hold on for a second, because it's like Abraham just did this too, and he already is going to have a child that's like named after this. And it's funny, she follows suit right after him when they appear again and says, "No, we're not." And it's funny is that Sarah denies it, and that's how this portion ends. It's just like Sarah's like, "I didn't laugh," and then he's like, "No, yeah, you did."
"No, but you did laugh,"
and that's it. There's no more dialogue between Sarah and the visitors.
God had the final laugh by putting "ha" in their names. H-A-H.
What?
There's no H-A in Sarah.
Yes, there is. It's
no,
backwards.
In Abraham, he adds an H-A, and in Sarah, he adds an H.
He replaces an I with an H.
Well, it's either way, it's an H. So God had the final laugh there.
Yes, you are.
God always has the final say.
I thought it was by actually making them name their son Laughter. But,
yeah,
but
well, at the same time,
that too, Josh. Yeah, that what you said, that was the right one. As like one day in English when they're reading this in 2024.
It is interesting because they start off saying, "Where is Sarah, your wife?"
Can you stop
and
reading that?
They end it with, "No, but you did laugh."
Even with the fact that they said they, I'm thinking about it now. It was more of a context of like they all basically were just asking, not in unison, all creepy, like, "Hey, where's Sarah, your wife?" It was more of like
they were Sarah, your wife.
There's three of us, so we can all say it at once if you guys want
Where's
to.
Sarah, your wife?
Where's Sarah, your wife?
But in other words, you get what I'm saying. Like they were all basically asking, "Hey, where is Sarah?" And then one of them is speaking directly to Abram at that point.
Very good point, because right after this happens, the men rose and looked towards Sodom with a really knowing look. And Abraham was just like, I think I'm going to go with you guys. And then like Abraham goes with them on the way. And then God has a very interesting response here. Nathan, if you would read verses 10 through 12. Not 10 through 12, I'm sorry. 16 through 17. Long. 16 through 17.
Then the men rose from there and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to send them on their way. And the Lord said, "Shall I hide from Abraham what I am doing?"
Let me read the next verse.
"Since Abraham surely shall become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have known him in order that he may command his children and his household after him. I think they keep the way of the Lord, just to do righteousness and justice, that the Lord may bring to Abraham what he has spoken to him."
Okay. Nathan.
Where is Sarah, your wife?
Sarah, your wife.
That needs to be a shirt.
That's going to be the name.
Where
of
is
the
Sarah, your wife?
And we found our title. But the cry against Sodom and Gomorrah was great. And I think it's interesting as they're walking. I don't know if they were thinking it to themselves or if like the three angels or the three men, and I'm just going to go ahead and spoiler alert it real quick. I believe that one was, again, that physical manifestation of the Lord, which would be Jesus with two angels specified. Because as we read on to the story, the men turned and went towards Sodom, but Abraham still stood before the Lord. So one of them stayed with Abraham, and the two continued on the path towards Sodom, as they say, after they decided to tell Abraham what's going on and what they plan to do. Abraham,
could it have been Michael?
Why would he call Michael Lord? Who else deserves the title of Lord other than God himself?
Well, before angel of the Lord, Hagar was calling him Lord.
That's why I said what I believe is that it was a manifestation of God's presence, which I take anytime I see that in the Old Testament, whether it's the word of the Lord, as we see referenced in John chapter 1, the word of the Lord, in the beginning was the word, and the word was God, or with God, and the word was God. That means that where we see the action, the physical manifestation, something that we can actually perceive and not perish, because in the presence of God the Father, nothing, our mortal bodies would not be able to take it. That has to be Jesus.
It's nice to know that Jesus is just an angel of the Lord.
No, he's not an angel of the Lord. He's referred to as the Lord. That's what it says,
here. And that's what you're saying. So
he's not just an angel of the Lord, but when you say angel of the Lord, or the Lord, or the word of the Lord, or a flaming torch in a smoking oven, that when in the ways that we can see and perceive on this earth, that interface, in my opinion, is Jesus. Just like in Adam and Eve, the one that confronted them, that walked through the garden that they were afraid of. Remember, we talked about this. That was Jesus. Why is it different then and not now? Because it says angel of the Lord. Like yes. when the ancient, like when Jewish people read this originally, that's kind of how they saw it too. It was like it was separate from God the Father, but still an entity that is representing God. That is God here in the way that we can physically see, perceive, hear with our ears.
Or maybe at that point they didn't have it written down, and to not confuse anything later on, basically, because later on we see that the angels have names. We have Gabriel, we have Michael, we have names for these angels.
Yeah, when you know it's a distinct creature or a distinct being that's separate.
Well, maybe God would just like, I'm done with, you guys are all getting really confused. I'm going to start like having them write down the names.
Where is Sarah, your wife?
I get where you're coming from. I'm not really.
It's debate, and you know, side. That's fine. We don't have to have the same opinions.
No, we normally don't, but still, it's okay.
What I'm going to say though is that either way, this portion of the story, and this is where we're going to finish up today, is extremely interesting. The outcries. Now, remember, Sodom. When Abraham met with the king of Sodom in chapter 14 after the war, and after he recovered Lot, after he spoke with Melchizedek. He had an attitude towards this king in a way where he wanted nothing. He didn't want no credit from this king or his kingdom or his riches whatsoever. And I mean, obviously Abraham wasn't stupid. He knew that place was probably wicked and terrible, and Gomorrah was probably wicked and terrible. Yeah. But he still had this heart, and it really says a lot about the character of Abraham, because he doesn't say, he knows that his nephew Lot, again, for those of you who have lost this, Lot took up his residence there. That's why he was captured whenever the kings of Sodom were taken over by the other kings. He doesn't just say, hey, my nephew's there, please have mercy on him or save him. But he's actually talking about the whole city. He's like, the way he responds to God is extremely interesting. He literally says, far be it from you to do such a thing as to slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous should be as the wicked. Far be
He's
it.
Calling God out, basically.
Shall you not be the judge of all
this?
Shall you not be judge of all the earth and do right? And that just, so the Lord said, if I find 50 righteous in the city, then I will spare the whole place for their sake. Like God is literally like, all right, cool. I'll find 50. He knows there isn't 50. This isn't like him, like, maybe we'll see. Like they already know what's up. And I think it's a way to kind of reveal to us kind of where Abraham's heart is and the type of person he was.
I love this back and forth that he's having with God, because Abram knows that there's not 50. So Abraham's like, God, will you spare 50? And God's
we're talking about two cities. He's like, God's like, listen, 50. He's like, awesome. I'm dust and ashes.
It's basically, obviously at this point with this conversation, we know that Abraham is quite the deal maker. So he knew that he couldn't ask for what he wanted from the very beginning. So he starts off with like, a crazy number to make them happy. So he starts off with the 50 to like,
Well, God
let
comes
me
up
just
with the
get
50.
in the.
God comes up with the 50. It literally says, the Lord answered, if I find 50 righteous in Sodom within the city, I will spare the place. And Abraham already knows, like, maybe
Yeah,
not
well,
50.
Abraham, yeah. He's like,
Listen, and I love the way he refers to the first. He always comes like humble. He's like, listen, I'm dust. I'm nothing. Have taken upon myself to speak with the Lord. How dare I even mention this?
Were you five less?
Maybe 5 less? Would you destroy it for 45? And God's like, he literally calls him out on it. If I find 45, I will not destroy it. Like, just, he just works his way down.
They keep going back and forth. Keeps going.
Abraham's the one that brought up 50 first.
What do you mean?
He did. He brought up 50 first.
Where? Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I misread that. In 24, you destroy a place and not spare it for the 50 righteous that were in it. Far be it from you to do such a thing as this. Yeah.
In other words, he opens the door. Because that caught me off guard. Because I thought Abraham said the 50.
Yeah, Abraham said the 50.
My bad.
And got down to 10.
He opens the door for negotiation. That's what's happening here.
Let me ask you this though. Remember that Lot's people were in great number, and there were so much that they quarreled with the people of
Not
Abraham.
lots of people. Literally, the guy's name is Lot.
Lot and his cattlemen, there's herdsmen, were fighting with the herdsmen of Abraham. And that's one of the reasons that they split up. So maybe Abraham was also thinking about it. Like, well, there's at least 50 in this place. But he doesn't know how long they were corrupted there, but he's still trying to save the whole city for the sake of the righteous he's like, because God wouldn't do that. And he just whittles him down, man. 45.
I don't know if he cared really about the city. He was basically more of like, he knew Lot was there, and he knew that if God destroyed the city, that Lot would basically go kaboom, no more Lot. So, instead of, I am wondering, it's like, why didn't he just ask God, hey, don't kill Lot. I don't care what you do with the city.
Well, that's kind of what I was saying, because he does have, I think it's a sign of compassion at this point. It's a sign of like what he is, like he knows how terrible God's wrath could be, and he's trying to not have everybody destroyed together, because you never know. Abraham doesn't know at this point. He knows that in general the city's bad, but he doesn't know how many good or bad are there. He probably has an idea, because he's literally whittling him down, because God never, he said, I will not do it for 30. And he's like, all right, cool. Well, maybe not 30.
So they keep going down. They keep going down,
20?
down.
And he said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 20.
Why did he stop at 10? He should have been like, what about for 1?
Because his family, his immediate family, if he was to go lower and lower, because God had already in plan, he's going to destroy this city. Not because of Lot, but because of the cries that he heard, that he had to come down and hear their cries for himself. Mm-hmm. So he already had in plan to destroy the city. And he obviously knew that Lot was there and that this discussion was going to come up. But then when he gets down to the number 10 in Lot's family, you got Lot's wife, and then Lot's daughters. That's basically 5. You got 5 people in his immediate family.
Well, he says he won't destroy it for the sake of 10, and then it just says the Lord went his way as soon as
he keeps dropping it by 5.
Abraham drops it by 10 eventually.
Well,
after 45, he goes to 40, then 30, then 20, then 10.
Well, he messed up my whole mindset.
You had a thing with the 5?
I had a whole thing with the 5, dropping it down to 5. Well, you obviously can't. Okay, how about this? You obviously can't go from 10 to 0.
Make it work. Form your informed view. And
in
make
other
it
words,
work even
once they get down to 10, he has to drop it down to 5.
Yeah, that's right, Josh.
Because he's cutting it in half. He cuts it in half.
He doesn't do that at all.
In other words, once you get to 5,
you're flying a dangerous game there, Maverick.
Lot is righteous, and his family is righteous. So God knew that if he got down to 5,
Josh plays it fast and loose.
We're going to find out how righteous his family is here in the next episode. Really, his family kind of sucks, but it's all right.
Yeah, that angels have to drag them out. We'll hit on that next time.
Next episode, we're going to end it here, and we're going to go into the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, one of the most widely known and debated and interesting stories of the Bible, or at least the
next
beginning
episode.
of the Old
We
Testament.
have murder. We have crazy people trying to have sex with angels. We have incest. We have
it's an explicit episode.
We have people turning to stone.
Stop telling y'all the story because some people don't know.
Well, I'm not. I'm just telling them like how wild this next episode is.
This next episode is going to be
the funnest part about the next episode is that whole cities get destroyed.
Okay, we're just going to go ahead and spoil the Bible, Nathan?
Well, they know the Bible.
Not everyone knows.
Hey, let's go.
Do you think that would happen in Hawaii with these laser beams that basically came down and destroyed Maui and even destroyed? There's a place.
Josh, just
hey, so the name of this podcast is the Greater Meaning Podcast. We're called the Greater Meaning Podcast. What is the greater meaning to this episode to you, Andrew?
Well, I don't think I'm ready to give the greater meaning yet. I still want to talk about. I'm just kidding. No, the Lord went on His way. It's interesting. I just want to put one more final point on my hypothesis that it was a representation of God, which we would know was the Son or Jesus when He came to Abraham as the Word.
Still on that?
Yes, because this is
much more 33. Talk about this.
33 ends it with the Lord went His way, and we know that it was the Lord, right?
Okay.
When we read the angels that were with them that make it to Sodom physically, there's only 2 of them.
Right? I got you. 2 go back to Sodom.
Okay. So that's all I'll say.
The one was the Lord. Josh doesn't believe that.
It's fine. I just, it's not fine. It's fine.
But this was different because we don't know. I see where you're going with this. But at the beginning, in verse 16, it says that the men rose up and went onto their way to Sodom, and then the Lord spoke to Moses.
Not to Moses.
No,
Abraham.
The men rose up and headed to Sodom, and then the Lord had a conversation with Abraham.
No, after. Okay, so
read 16.
Is it 16? Hold on.
Yeah, I'll read it.
Then the men arose from there and looked to saw Abraham went with them in their faith. And the Lord said, shall I hide what I'm doing? For I have known that but there's a part here that says that the Lord may bring an Abraham spoken. And then the Lord said, okay, hold on.
It's verse 22. You guys are bad at this.
Yeah.
Then the men turned away from there and went towards Sodom, but Abraham still stood before the Lord.
Yeah, that's the verse I was looking for. 22.
Man.
My bad.
So it's like right there.
Yeah, I know. I was scrolling through.
You're scrolling so
and that's
fast.
just why I like to have the physical Bible here.
Yeah, but it says the men turned away from there and went towards Sodom, but Abraham stood before the Lord.
Yeah, that means there was 3. Now there's 1 that he kept standing before, and the other 2 keep walking towards Sodom.
And that one was called
and
the Lord.
Then the men turned away.
Yeah, gotcha.
No.
The Lord.
The Lord stood there, and the others walked away. And there was 3, and then when we get to Sodom story, there's only 2 because
I guess I guess one of them could have been the Lord, and then the other 2 were just angels of the Lord.
That's exactly what Andrew's been saying.
I get it. I'm just re-saying.
And the one that's the Lord is a pre-incarnate Jesus. Just like
it could have been, but
just like
and that also goes back to the fact of why Abraham was referring to Lord instead of lords when they showed up, as if he knew
there was one there with two
one
henchmen.
Specific one,
2 powerful henchmen, by the way.
Melchizedek.
Melchizedek.
Some people say it was Jesus. My point is this. We see evidence of Jesus's involvement in the story of the Bible, in the story of history throughout. He's not just a character that was born of Mary, and that's when we first see him, and then he dies and gets resurrected. Jesus is God. He was there from the beginning as the Word of God. He was there implicit in the creation and in a major part of our lives and the lives of God's people in the whole story. Now, when I look at the story of Abraham, to me, the greater meaning of this portion is really personified with the different ways that God can represent himself and the complexities of his representation to humanity. He's always involved. He's always there. He's always willing to reach out. He's coming continuously to reaffirm his promises, to reaffirm his covenant, to encourage, to lift up, even if you're Hagar in the wilderness or whether you're Abraham, still waiting on the promise that you're trusting in day by day. God will fulfill his promises and be true to his word. And what God does in this episode is he changes our identity even before the promise happens to fulfill your reflection of that. He changes his name. He makes them a covenant to set them apart. It's like another act of faith that Abraham has to walk into. And I think it's a beautiful thing whenever God continually encourages us and pushes us along and shows us that, if you just trust in me, I will make the impossible possible. That's my greater meaning. Josh, what about you?
Oh man, my greater meaning. The meaning that I have is definitely great. It's a great meaning for sure. Basically. How great Where is your wife, Sarah? Where is she? Listen.
It's not how I was saying.
God will give you promises. He'll say what he has planned for your life. And sometimes through our frustration on putting God in a box and thinking that we know best, because at that point in their lives, they weren't able to have children, right? And God's telling Abraham, you're going to be a father of nations. And at that point, Abraham's like, I'm a father of none right now. So even in our lives, we're just like, I don't have a job. I don't have money. I got bills, but I don't have money. And God, you're promising, you promised that we wouldn't go hungry. You promised that you would take care of us. And I'm speaking as if like in a family point of view, because I have a family. And God will give you things in ways you don't expect. Just like how in Abraham's life, it had to come with 3 messengers coming down and coming to him, and then Abraham feeding them and stuff like that. And then basically and then everything starts to happen. So even in our lives, how frustrated are we sometimes with God that we end up taking actions in our own hands, that we do what we think is best at that point. And then God will come in and we'll have to deal with it because things now have happened. Ishmael now has been born. So God had to do something about it. I'm not saying that he cursed him. I'm just saying that now there's another thing that God has to do. So let's be with my greater meaning. Like, I think it's important that when God promises something, have faith in God that he will deliver it. That's my greater meaning. I'm not going to complicate that too much because I can keep going and then go around in circles and
Nathan?
So you both touched on really good points. My greater meaning to this episode, and particularly I'll touch on a kind of different point. It's very important when you say that you have faith in God to not try to complete God's work for him, right? Don't take it upon yourself to bring about a blessing in your way. And we are always guilty of that in our life. The reason where I'm alluding to is with the whole Ishmael situation, right? God told Abraham specifically, and him and his wife will have a seed, and that will be, the everlasting genealogy, whatever. Many generations will come from that. To have Sarah just take it upon herself to kind of speed up the process. That's kind of just basically showing you have faith that God will work, but only in the way, but I have to make it happen. Let me tell you something with God. You don't have to make it happen, right? You do the best that you can and God will do the rest. That's like a motto in our family. You do the best, always do your best and God will do the rest. You don't have to fight battles for God, right? God doesn't need you to fight his battles. God doesn't need you to speed up his blessings. God blesses you when he blesses you, and he works on his timetable, not on yours. And although it's difficult to stomach that a lot of times, because we always, in our culture today, we want things so immediate, you have to always remember that God works, and it's very cliche to say, but God works in mysterious ways. Even with a 100-year-old man and a very old lady, he will, bless them, and they will birth a kid, and it's something that's impossible, but it's something that does happen because God is a God of the impossible. And that is my greater meaning for this podcast today.
Awesome.
God is a God of the impossible.
That is right.
If you don't think it can happen, it will happen.
So that's where we're going to end up today, leading up to, like we said before, the epic story of Sodom and Gomorrah and the tragedy of all the people that perished. Thank you so much for listening. As always, we definitely probably missed something, or maybe you read this passage and had something different, or we want to hear what your greater meaning is. We encourage you, as always, to pick up the Bible, read these stories for yourselves, and share with us. I mean, anything from what you thought it meant whenever Abraham didn't cut the turtle dove and the pigeon.
Yeah, I have something.
What?
Why was it bread and butter?
It was just nice, like
Why
it was
just
delectable things.
Yeah.
Milk and butter.
Why butter? Why not honey?
That's
not
why
honey?
Maybe there was no bees in the trees by the.
Have you ever had bread, butter, and honey together? Fantastic. I mean, just an explosion of greatness in your mouth. Oh my gosh. And then with a cup of milk, I'm pretty sure maybe they had a cup of milk too.
They had milk, butter, and bread. Yeah.
Fantastic meal if it was with honey. I feel bad for those messengers that only had for those men that they just missed out on the honey.
Yeah. Why did the three men or the three angelic presences, why did they eat?
Well, we didn't touch on that. Why did they eat?
Yeah, why did they eat? You message us and let us know. Because again, there's so much in these stories. There's so many things. The Bible goes so deep. We're not going to catch everything. We're just moving through the stories and covering what we can. Don't forget to email us at greatermeaningpodcast@gmail.com.
And that merch.
That merch is coming.
I'm having this whole imagery of they eat the food and then they're like, we gotta destroy something. This is terrible.
They get up and they start staring at Sodom, all serious, and Abraham's like, guys,
they're mad that the food wasn't good enough.
So this
is terrible. Earth is terrible. Humans need to be destroyed.
Where's Sodom? I heard that place sucks.
Sodom was probably the closest city, so they're like, that place got to go.
Maybe because he didn't bring out honey.
Exactly. They had no sweet.
It's like
they only had salt.
It's like what to say to trigger John.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the meaning. Why they Sodom and Gomorrah wasn't spared because Abraham lacked faith prepare honey.
I mean, you have to understand the reason why the Jews were enslaved is because he didn't cut a bird in half.
When you say it like that, yeah. Not the birds. God's like punishment for 400 years.
You know what? You didn't cut the birds in half, bro. 400 years of punishment. Where is your wife, Sarah?
It's all about obedience, man.
Oh, no. Where is Sarah, your wife?
You can't even get it right anymore. Guys, thank you so much for listening.
Where is she? Why was she just sitting in the tent listening?
Women.
It's been a pleasure speaking to all of you, not just youth too that I have to deal with, but everybody else. If you're tuning in and if you're listening like we're apparently some type of radio, just
please subscribe,
please, yeah,
and share and tell people about us.
Give us a 5-star review if you like what you hear and you support the podcast. Share us with your friends. Give us that.
Or if
follow.
you don't support it, give us a 5-star review and write a hateful comment. We'd love to hear it.
We want that smoke.
We want that smoke.
That smoke from the oven.
All right, guys. It's been a pleasure. Have a good one.
Bye.